Good afternoon and welcome once again to Civil Engineering Today, brought to you by the Boston Society of Civil Engineers. I'm Ana Cristina.
And I'm Reed Brockman.
And today we have a very special guest. We've been wanting for a while because climate change is so multifaceted of an issue. We've wanted to delve as deeply as we can into it, and we promised to bring you several shows on it. So we're going to fulfill that promise. And we have with us Allan Klindworth.
Allan Klindworth is with us today, and he works at AECOM, and his official position is the project manager for climate adaptation.
Welcome.
Which sounds like a great job.
It sure is. Sure is. Full of opportunity.
It's been a while, a couple months, so we'll start with some of the basics about, just define for people who didn't see other parts of the show, if you can define climate change. We don't go too much into the controversial aspects of it. We as engineers are dealing with what's occurring, so that's just how we move forward. But if you can explain to us basically what climate change adaptation is.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, we're seeing significant amounts of extreme weather events happening increasingly, extreme rainfall events, coastal flooding events, but also extreme heat events. And the climate change adaptation space is looking at how are those changing, what is the likely changes in the frequency or intensity of those events, and how they might impact communities or businesses and the infrastructure that supports them.
So when you're talking about these extreme events, you're trying not to be reactive. You're trying to be proactive. So how do you try to figure out the events that you should be focusing on?
Well, there's a fairly standard process. Some of these things have been issues that have been dealt with currently by organisations. Storms and flooding happens. We have extreme heat historically, and that's going to continue. So part of it's getting an understanding of what the existing vulnerabilities of a community or a business or a specific infrastructure is. So what are the weak points within either the electrical system or the water supply, telecommunications, or the actual building structure itself. So going through a process of working out what assets are likely to be exposed to those issues and what their sensitivity to those issues are. So how quickly or likely are they to fail when a particular hazard intersects with them. And then going through a process of looking at the vulnerabilities, understanding what's most vulnerable, and then digging a bit deeper on those and investing more time in understanding the specific risks that are presented. And again, a risk assessment process will help prioritise those that are most requiring more urgent attention.
So I'm sure everybody's noticing you've got an accent. And
Sure
so you're from, if we took a hole through the middle of the earth and came out on the other side in Melbourne, Australia, that's where you grew up. And you were doing work of this sort over in Australia before you came over to the United States. What kind of, just to give everybody a little background, what kind of stuff were you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, definitely Melbourne, Australia is where I'm from. Previously working with AECOM there, helping state, local government, as well as federal government address these issues. So helping at the local level, helping municipalities understand what these issues, both extreme events, but also longer term changes in resource availability, so changes in rainfall patterns or temperature, and what that might mean for biodiversity, so managing parks and open spaces. So helping them understand their operations, but also the services that they provide to communities as well. So as temperatures are heading up, more extreme events that can place additional stress on vulnerable populations, like aged populations that councils have to provide services for. So helping them look at how it'll affect their assets, but also the services they offer. And then looking at the state level and the federal level, we did similar assessments of property and assets, but also helping develop guidance materials so that those organisations could help themselves, so to speak, and work with their own staff, but also contractors that support them.
In the United States, do we have something similar that we're doing here? Do we follow a similar procedure than what they?
Yeah, there's certainly quite a bit of activity that's happening right across America, from the executive orders that's coming from the federal level to states like Massachusetts and Rhode Island that have enacted climate change legislation, and also putting money into grant programs to help organisations and townships look at these issues. So both addressing and getting an understanding of their vulnerabilities, as I described, but also taking that step to implementing solutions, whether they're...
That was a great way to ask that question. I was thinking to myself, I'm dying to, I said with no controversy on our show, but I'm like, how are your politicians compared to our politicians? I think we've been pretty good, you know, getting people to listen, it seems, in this area. Are you finding that as well?
Yeah. With a nation with so many states and so many opportunities for variability in how the issues are addressed in the politics, I mean, it does vary, but it certainly looks as though there's increasing action. Whether there's necessarily political support in some areas, there certainly looks as though there's a lot of action happening.
I think enough evidence is building that you know, it's kind of hard to ignore at this point.
Absolutely, and there's no doubt that catastrophic events like Superstorm Sandy have definitely helped motivate action in this area with people looking at the issue, whether the climate change issue is the main focus or increasingly resilience or climate preparedness are issues that are being, well, the topic or the phrase that's being used to introduce or support activity in this area.
So I know you have some slides that had some pictures of, like, mostly the impacts. We're showing mostly things like catastrophes, flooding in areas and buildings being completely covered in ice and things that are happening when we have extreme weather events. Mm-hmm. What are some examples of, is it usually like specific events that happen that trigger things to happen? Or is there actually someone out there that's, you know, listing out the different types of extreme events that are happening and then taking it to make an action plan of having steps in place to deal with it? Is it coming down from the local, coming from the top, or a combo?
I mentioned 50 states, a lot of variability.
Yeah.
It really...
Yeah, there is here. Look at California. I mean, they've got their own set of emergency going on right now with the drought.
Absolutely. And there's been a lot of action there, preemptive action, looking at what, there was a study looking at the rising tides within San Francisco and what increases in sea level and storm surge, and how the waves and the flooding that come through a coastal storm event, what that might mean for infrastructure around the San Francisco Bay Area. So that was an example of a proactive approach to address these issues. There's certainly human nature. I think it's fair to say we like to put off anything for as long as we can.
Right.
But when we have a disaster strikes and it's right there, individually or emergency, that also triggers action. But the key really is to get an understanding initially of what the challenges are that you're likely to face, so that when an event does happen, you've identified not only what the issue is, but you've got a plan in place for how you're going to manage and respond and recover. And in that recovery, it could be a combination of having plans, literally plans in place for how an asset, for example, if a road gets washed out or a building gets destroyed, you've got in place a plan for how you would rebuild that with consideration of the future events. So how bad the same type of flooding event might be in 20 years' time, 50 years' time, depending on the life of the asset you're looking at. So having that plan in place so that when the opportunity does come along for putting that plan in place, be it an opportunity because it's been destroyed and needs to be rebuilt, or a funding opportunity comes along, coincides with the end of the useful life of the asset, that you can get straight in there rather than just replacing it like for like.
Right. You definitely want to make, and that's the nice thing about second times around, is you can solve some of the problems you didn't have solved in the first time around. Yeah.
It certainly, while you don't want to be in a position where you've got that catastrophic event, that failure that leads to flow-on issues for the community, it does present an opportunity to improve your position and be more resilient for the next time.
So, taking Boston as an example, Boston, it's a city where when you would go back, to the early 1800s, we just had a little spot of land in downtown Boston. Then we had Roxbury was solid land with a little causeway coming out around Washington Street. And then you got East Boston as little dots of island, and we backfilled everything else.
A lot of dredging.
Everything we've got is pretty much right at sea level, and the ground underneath it is like a whole bunch of deep clay with a bunch of
only the first 40 to 75 feet, and then heavy fill,
So what would be some of the things that we've really got to look out for in a crazy place like this?
Well, it's certainly got a great mix of challenges, the same challenges that a lot of cities are facing along the coastline, certainly big and old cities. It's got not only the geographic challenges that and geologic challenges you've described, but huge investment, large populations. So things like retreat are largely not going to be an option.
Right.
And retreat being moving away
Move
from the
away
coast.
for a while, right.
Yeah. And there's a lot of studies going on at the moment. There's a lot of action. There's a design competition coming up that is seeking to answer that question more eloquently than I will in the next 30 seconds or so. But looking at a suite of options, it's not going to be one single solution. Need to understand the systems that are in play that make up the city of Boston and the economy, that support the economy and the tourism activity, etc. Medical services, research institutions, etc. So understanding how they all fit together and getting a good understanding of the problem, and then putting in a range of solutions, some which would include large physical infrastructure solutions, potentially barriers to prevent water getting into certain areas, smaller site-specific solutions, so preventing water or extreme heat issues affecting particular electrical assets or carports and that type of thing. Indeed, looking at an existing structure and working out how that can live with water, so to speak. So letting the water come in and just minimising the damage that occurs when that event happens and enabling quicker recovery. That's a key thing, being able to recover quickly.
And just listening to you too, it's reminding me, there's so many different groups that are invested in this. Our guest last month, John Sullivan from Boston Water and Sewer Commission, there's a lot of amazing things that they're trying. So keeping track of who's trying what, and putting it all together and watching it all come together slowly. I mean, it's good that we have, the people that are in charge of our infrastructure seem to be interested in making these changes. As well as I find it seems like more and more private developers are asking to be protected against it. Are you finding this to be true as well? Or do you do mostly large infrastructure, public works?
The majority of my experience is definitely more on the public side of things, with private being mainly the utility elements, so power, looking at those issues related to power or water. But having said that, there's certainly risk is what it comes down to, and risk to an investment. So there's more understanding in the community and more awareness and more smarts out there, so that people are making decisions increasingly thinking about these issues. So if they're going to be buying a property, there's more information out there as to what issues they should be aware of in making those type of investments, and equally with developers trying to proactively put something in place that is going to lead to a longer, more valuable asset for the community.
I agree. I'm guilty of that. When I think about buying property, I always look at flood maps.
But these things, for a sense of scale, these problems are not something that you can solve in a quick. In fact, it's not really going to be our generation. These problems are going to go on for generations after generation. By coincidence, one of the competitions we run, the Future City competition, tries to get kids to project into the future and make their ultimate city. And last year, the theme of it was stormwater. And we were seeing kids coming up out of their head with very little research done, with some great solutions. What are the? First off, one of my big concerns is that kids don't even understand that careers like what you do is a real career. That everybody talks. What do you want to do? I want to save the world. I want to make the world a better place. They throw out things like that, and you have an actual job that is solving the problems that make the world a better place. What are some of the things that these kids are going to face, and what kinds of things should they be thinking about? What's going to be the problems of that next generation that they really got to face?
Well, problems, I like to think of it as opportunity. They've got a significant opportunity, as do you and I, and everyone that's around at this point in time. We've all got the opportunity to make decisions that will hopefully make things easier or better for those that come after us. Looking at school-age children, I've got 2 kids of my own, so they sit within that bracket, or soon to be that bracket. They have the opportunity to factor this into effectively any career that they want. I've certainly been lucky enough that I've fallen into that space where this is a new and emerging issue, like environmental sustainability was 10, 15 years ago. But in many ways, that's become mainstreamed consideration of environmental impacts.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just merged into the technology.
Yeah, which is the way this needs to be addressed. It'll take a while before, and there's some big decisions that need to be made before we get there. But ideally, it gets to a point where existing business processes in every field, whether a person is moving into a medical field or moving into a social science or planning or infrastructure design, that they're looking forward in making their decisions. So not just purely taking a design guideline that's based on historical weather events or historical scenarios, or looking at how things have been done in the past. The biggest thing really is to look forward and think about how things can be done differently, but also what is the environment that they're going to face, both in terms of the climate, but also the social environment. So is there going to be increased population in this area that are going to have to live and deal with these issues, and how can that be factored in as well?
And hopefully the schools are going to be watching this, and they'll get the message and actually get kids thinking that way.
I think it's interesting too that they'll actually get something you really is hard to grasp in engineering. They'll live through a period of trial and error as these things are coming together, and they're watching what happens if you don't do anything, what happens if you try something but it maybe doesn't work or creates another issue. I mean, you were speaking earlier, some of the mitigation techniques. I don't know if you want to discuss other ones, but like barrier walls and whatnot. That's met with some controversy because that energy just obviously goes somewhere else. You know, it doesn't come to us, but it goes somewhere. So I think it'll be interesting. It's an interesting time to be a kid and watch how some things take time. And there's going to be periods where failure happens, but it's okay, and it's going to cost some money.
Well, no one wants to hear that.
I want to get that right.
But what are some of the things you've worked on that, like, you know, some of your most satisfying that, you know, you've really been proud of working on? What are some of the projects?
In working within the community level is certainly one element. So helping, there was one community in the western suburbs of Melbourne that had a traditional engineering solution that was a concrete drainage channel that ran between two residential blocks, and it was quite just an unsightly area, dying grass with our rainfall issues, particularly in the western Melbourne. Dying grass, concrete channel, dead space, two communities that weren't connected.
Not pretty.
Yeah.
It's not Paris.
Not Paris, definitely not. Not even Melbourne or Boston, I might add. The opportunity that was taken there, and the project I got involved in there, combined the environmental side, the biodiversity people within the council, the two local communities on either side of it, and also the engineering staff, and looked at changing that concrete structure into more of a natural swale, drain and wetlands setup, so that not only did that provide greater flood protection when those extreme rainfall events hit, it was designed to slow the water down, and reduce the flooding problem downstream. But it also provided a beautiful environment where people were actually interested in being in that space. And if you've got people walking around the streets in the open space, you've got a more livable city. But also from a biodiversity point of view, they through the construction works, it stirred up seeds for a rare plant, rare grass plant that came up. But also every time I've gone past there, you can hear nothing but frogs, depending on what time of year you're out there, and it's just beautiful. So that's one local scale opportunity, but also looking from a more systems point of view. Our work within the Australian government and the Department of Defence were one of the particular leaders within the Australian government looking at these issues. Similar, from what I understand, the Department of Defence in America is taking significant strides in understanding what the risks may present to their assets and broader safety threats. In working with them, we undertook a series of studies to help them get an understanding and that of how it might affect them. And that led to rapid changes in the way the conversation was held within the organisation, going from belief to risk.
It's always good to have the DoD on your side. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it also led to not going straight just from the planning side of things, but also working that straight into action as well. So during that study, they were able to take findings and start changing the behaviours within the organisation to consider these issues at particular sites.
Well, we unfortunately are running out of time. I love the way we ended on those questions, but we'd definitely like to have you back. Like I said, we're looking to really delve into this issue because we are dealing with it, and it's interesting. It's an interesting period in history to live through, that's for sure.
It really is. And nobody ever
Huge
thinks of history
opportunity.
that way. It's just, we're in a great time, and thank you for everything you're doing.
Yes, thank you very much. Do you have any?
Yeah, got a couple of announcements. Yeah, a couple of announcements I got to get in before it's over. First off, the Future City competition registration is open, and it's open for a good month and a half still.
Awesome. What's the theme?
So the theme this year is all about urban farming. So there'll be a special,
Fabulous.
they have to explain how they're going to cultivate both a crop and one protein in their cities. It's a very short essay question, but you got to work it into the city. So there's kids going into the, making their city of the future and then explaining how it works.
That's great. Now, as one of the regular judges at that competition, I think we should also make them make us lunch from that crop. That's what we should do. Make that. It's like, who knows what you'd be eating.
Didn't we give a kid a nut last year? Never mind. Okay. The other thing I want to mention is that even though there's still some time, the Model Bridge Contest will be starting back up the third week in October.
Awesome.
So school should be starting making up teams. It'll be a surprise material, so I can't tell you anything about it. And it'll all kick off at Think Fest, which, if my mind has it right, it's October 18th.
I think you're right.
18th this year. It falls
marked
on a funny date because of the way the weeks work this year.
But
that'll be
engineeryourfuture.org?
College. Yep, engineeryourfuture.org is where we put up all the information.
Well, we want to thank you again, Allan. I mean, it's so interesting. We'd love to
You're
have
very
you on again. I can never get enough of this subject. Like I said, I find it an interesting period in history. So thank you again for coming on, and we'll see everybody next month.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.